Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Memorial Day. Happy Monday, May 26th, to everybody out there. Have a good show for you today. So, just talked a little bit about kind of the Big Ten SEC 16-team college football playoff proposal. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the Big 12 right now, and we're going to talk about some of the rivalries in the Big 12. A conference that, honestly, the rivalries kind of got ravaged over the past few years, just with some of the departures throughout the conference. But before we dive into that, I just want to remind everybody that this show is all about you. We love hearing your comments, your questions, your insights, your opinions, your hot takes, whatever you got. We want to hear it. We want to make this show as interactive, as exciting as possible. Now, one easy way to do that, if you're on YouTube, is to use the Super Chat feature. To use the Super Chat feature, all you have to do is click the $ at the bottom of the chat box, type in your message there, send that in. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, gets read live. It's also just a great way to support our channel and support what we're trying to build here at GSMC. We couldn't do what we do without your ongoing support, and we're so grateful to have you here as a part of our community at the GSMC Podcast Network. Now, let's dive into the Big 12. Big 12, kind of one of the unfortunate byproducts of this whole realignment saga is the loss of a lot of traditional rivalries across the country, right? But the Big 12 really kind of got hit hard. With both Texas A&M and Texas in the SEC, as well as Oklahoma, were big losses for Texas Tech, especially losing both of their in-state rivals in A&M and Texas. Kansas and Missouri, their border war, which had dated back to the 1800s, that got lost when Missouri went to the SEC in 2011. Oklahoma, Nebraska, they were conference rivals for a long time. Obviously, Nebraska in the Big Ten, Oklahoma in the SEC now. Bedlam's no longer after Oklahoma left for the SEC. But there's still some good ones. There's still some underrated ones. And one of the underrated ones, I think, that really has room to grow. Now, I wouldn't consider it as kind of a top-tier rivalry. These two don't even play each other during kind of rivalry week, during the last week of the college football regular season. But Texas Tech Baylor, yes, doesn't kind of carry the same type of angst for either team that matchups that with Texas A&M kind of once had. But this is still historic rivalry, still one of the oldest continually played matchups in the Big 12. They've met every year on the gridiron since 1956, so not, super long, but still 70, 80 years going back now, that these two programs have played each other. Baylor has led this series all time, but it's 41-40 with one draw. So it's pretty competitive if you think about it. Not one of the ones that the Big 12 chose to protect, though, when they expanded in 2025. So it's going to end at some point. Kind of sad, though. It means something to both fan bases, right? Because these are now the only Texas teams in the Big 12. Well, Houston, you do have Houston and TCU, but if you're looking at more historic programs, I would say Baylor, Texas Tech would make more sense as that kind of matchup. Also, just the contrast in cultures. You have the large state institution in Texas Tech, the private Christian university in Baylor, kind of makes it a little interesting, and just that contrast, the clash of cultures. And this is going to be kind of those mid-tier rivalries that I think it's got potential if they keep each other in the Big 12, if they stay conference rivals. It would make a lot of sense as this kind of gets chippier. Last year, Baylor won 59-35, kind of that classic no defense Big 12 matchup that you're kind of used to seeing. But a rivalry that could definitely kind of grow. One that's definitely a little more established, got the Sunflower Showdown. Come on, the Sunflower Showdown. Kansas State, Kansas, it's a good one. Series that carries a lot of weight in Kansas. Only recently has it kind of become competitive on the football field. Honestly, it's been played since 1902. Series actually belongs to Kansas right now. They're up like 14 games on Kansas State. But it's kind of been interesting because one of the two programs has been awful for a really long stretch of time. So the series hasn't been super intriguing. Not all Kansas's fault either. There's a time when Kansas State, they were the laughingstock of football at one point. Not Kansas. Before Bill Snyder took over, the Jayhawks really kind of dominated this series, and then it kind of flipped on its head. But now, both programs kind of on stable footing. Kansas State, I think, definitely in much better of a position than the Kansas program is, but kind of a rivalry that's intriguing for the first time and maybe ever. If they both continue on their current trajectory, this could be one of the more fun matchups in the Big 12 as it kind of grows into its own league. Last year, Kansas State won 29-27. Game was capped with a drive where they kicked a field goal with like a minute and a half left. So an intriguing matchup on the field, one that could definitely grow. Now, another one that Kansas State is involved in is Farmageddon. Farmageddon. What a great name for a matchup, too. It's Farmageddon. So clever. That's an awesome rivalry matchup name. But this is a series that goes back to 1917, over 100 years. One of the most even rivalries in the Big 12. Cyclones lead 53-50 with 4 ties throughout this series. But it's kind of been a series with long winning streaks. From 1994 to 2003 and 2008 to 2017, Kansas State had 10 wins in a row during that time. And then ISU did that in the 40s, from like 43 to 52. This game, though, it was played during the Spanish flu, during both World Wars, during COVID. It's been played for a long time. But it's not going to be a survived matchup, which is brutal. It's going to have its first break in 2027, so we still have a couple more years of Farmageddon. Last year, Iowa State won 29-21, kind of jumped out to a big lead, took it into halftime 24-14. They ended up kind of just maintaining it. This year, matchup is week 0, August 23rd, in Dublin, Ireland, at Aviva Stadium. It's going to be a good one. These teams are both going to be really solid this year. Iowa State won 11 games last year. Kansas State has had multiple seasons of 9+ wins under Chris Kleeman. Going to be a really competitive Big 12 matchup. This is going to be an exciting one this year, though. And we're going to have some Farmageddon across the pond in Dublin, Ireland. It's going to be a good time. Another good one. We got Arizona State, one of the still traditional kind of rivalries, playing for the Territorial Cup. And this is a great in-state rivalry, one that is protected by the Big 12, thank the Lord. A series that dates back to 1899. All-time, Arizona holds 51-45-1 record. A really tight series. Arizona State became a 4-year school in 1925, so only 100 years ago. And since then, the only years that the rivalry wasn't played was from 1938 to 40, and then 1943 to 1945 during World War II. And it's interesting, Arizona can actually attribute this series to the era before the start of World War II. From the start of the century to like 1937, Arizona went 15-1 against Arizona State, but in the modern era, Arizona State's really kind of had the edge. This century, in the 21st century, Arizona State is 15-9 overall. They did drop the last 2 before 2024. Obviously, last year demolished Arizona, 149-7, en route to that Big 12 championship. Great matchup, great rivalry. Hopefully one that might be more competitive coming soon in the future. But we'll see. Arizona State, I think, is going to be pretty good under Kenny Dillingham. So, not really sure. Number one, though, come on, it's got to be the Holy War. BYU, Utah, coolest name for a rivalry in the Big 12, one of the coolest in the country, and a great rivalry overall. The dislike between these two schools, it's not hard to understand. You have bragging rights for the state. You have one school that's a large state institution, one that's a private religious institution with kind of a massive national following, though. The cultural contrast between the two alone makes it a lot to love in this rivalry. It can be traced back to 1896. All-time, Utah kind of owns BYU in this, but most of Utah's lead is kind of due to the early parts of this series, from basically 1896 to almost the start of World War II. Utah went 18 wins, 0 losses, 3 draws against BYU until BYU finally won in 1941. So for 40 years of this rivalry, BYU didn't win anything. This is one of the big ones that will shape the Big 12 going forward. This is one that's kind of born to be a staple of the new Big 12. Last year, BYU wins 22-21 on a game-winning field goal, 44 yards out from Will Ferrin, 3 seconds left. Absolute classic. This is a matchup that's going to continue being great moving forward. A rivalry I'm super excited to see this year. After Utah kind of had a rough year, they should be bouncing back this year. BYU is going to be strong again. We're going to see another great edition of the Holy War this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see some good big-time matchups in the Big 12 in 2025. Right now, we're going to take another quick break on the show. When we come back, we're going to talk Group of 5. We're going to talk to some of the Group of 5 quarterbacks, some of the ones that I really like, and kind of what's going on with them, what they're all about. So we're going to get into all of that when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.